I tried to convince Steve to let me go first. On behalf of our board chair, Dave Nicolai, Temple Payne, our school principal, our entire faculty and staff, our students and their families, I would like to welcome you to our 10th anniversary celebration of King of Hearts. I'd like to begin by saying thank you. Your presence here tonight in support of our mission, in support of our young men and women, helps to make many amazing things possible, so thank you. I'd especially like to thank Lynn and Tony McGuire, our chair couple for this evening. With their time, talent, and energy, we were able to have a great party this evening, selling out for the 5th consecutive year while significantly increasing our sponsorship and our attendance. We're over 700 people here tonight. Thank you for coming. We also had an incredible host committee. They are listed in your program books that can be found at your table. This group was instrumental in making tonight a huge success. From centerpieces to silent auction, they did it all. You're incredible. Thank you. I'd also like to thank our team from Christ the King, Steve Hulte, Maureen Kelly, Katie Karich, Tony Azupapo, Jessica Douglas, and Mike Smith. They do a tremendous job every day and are responsible for much of the work behind the scenes that makes this a special night every year. Thank you very much. We have our development committee meetings on the 59th floor of an office tower on Monroe and Franklin. When you look west out the window, you can trace Jackson Boulevard all the way from the Loop to the United Center, to Garfield Park, across the west side, and all the way to Christ the King. It's only a short distance. It's just over 6 miles. I've thought about those 6 miles quite a bit over the past 5 years. In the last speech Martin Luther King gave before his assassination 50 years ago, he used a phrase that has resonated with me and has served as a point of reflection quite a bit this past year. It's not the final lines of the speech that most remember. I have been to the mountaintop, and can picture King hammering out with his powerful voice. The simple phrase occurs 20 minutes earlier. It is, let us develop a kind of dangerous unselfishness. He expounds upon this thought, placing himself in the story of the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan starts with a lawyer, a scribe, testing Jesus. He asks Jesus what he must do to inherit eternal life. Jesus responds with a long version of, love God and love your neighbor. The man, trying to justify himself, trying to show himself to be righteous, follows up and asks Jesus, and who is my neighbor? Jesus takes this question and places it on the notoriously dangerous road between Jerusalem and Jericho. He talks about a man beset by thieves who was beaten and robbed and left to die on the road. Many of you know the story, how the priest and the Levite, upon seeing the man, passed by on the other side. The third person to come along, the Samaritan, sees the man, tends to his wounds, and ensures that he is cared for. King imagines himself first as the priest and then the Levite, trying to understand their motives for not stopping. Using sarcasm, he talks about a church meeting they had to attend or a gathering of the Jericho Road Improvement Association. Arriving back at a more serious tone, he concludes that the priest and the Levite don't stop because they're afraid. They're scared. The road to Jericho was known as the Bloody Pass during the time of Jesus. King feels the men were stuck asking themselves the question, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? The Samaritan flips that question and asks, if I don't stop to help this man, what will happen to him? Place yourself along Jackson Boulevard, along Washington Boulevard, Lake Street, or Madison Avenue. Place yourself on those 6 miles that separate Christ the King from downtown. Place yourself on those streets that separate many of our students from the opportunities offered in the Loop. We all like to think that we would stop, much like the Samaritan. But the decision to stop is not always an easy one. When I was speaking with one of our current board members about why he wanted to get involved, he spoke about watching the news, reading the newspapers, hearing about some of the problems that continue to plague the West Side: violence, drugs, high unemployment. He would then find himself driving on the Eisenhower and asking different iterations of those same questions. Who is my neighbor? And if I don't stop to help, what will happen to my neighbor? Who is willing to walk that road, to step outside their comfort zone, to share in a dangerous unselfishness, one in which we're able to focus on and put the needs of others, our neighbors, before ourselves? Mike Kelly stopped. He got to know his neighbors because he believed strongly in the potential of young people across the West Side, feeling that for many, the best opportunity for success would be to open a second Cristo Rey model school in the city that would focus on helping students in the Austin community and from across the West Side. He pushed the Jesuits to open Christ the King and became a founding board member. For centuries, the Jesuits have stopped. Whether it was the renowned missionaries of bygone eras, or John Foley, Brad Schaefer, and Jim Gartland, for their work in Pilsen, opening the first Cristo Rey school and building a network of similar schools across the country. Whether it was Dave Mastrangelo for his work at Loyola in Detroit and now at Christ the King, or Father Chris Devron for his work in the REACH program and Intercity Teaching Corps and as the founding president of Christ the King. The Jesuits have always stood with those on the margins and continue the fight for social justice. 11 companies stopped. In 2008, when the only stories emanating from the West Side were telling of the horror of violence and drugs, and the entire city was reeling from the Great Recession, we had 11 companies step forward and exhibit that dangerous unselfishness, a willingness to dive in and get involved. While many others shied away and found excuses, they were willing to invest in the young men and women of Austin and become the anchors of our corporate work study program. ABC Bank, Advocate Good Samaritan Hospital, Applegate Thorne Thompson, Arthur J. Gallagher, CME Group, Community Investment Corp., Gottlieb Memorial Hospital, MB Financial Bank, McShane Construction, O'Keefe Lyons and Hines, and Reyes Holdings. This group of founding companies has provided countless opportunities to our students, from attending athletic events and graduations to writing letters of recommendation for college. People from these companies have gotten to know their neighbors and have opened doors to brighter futures. Thank you. The school administration, our faculty and staff, and Jesuit volunteers all stopped. Committed to our mission, they work tirelessly on behalf of our students, ensuring that they are prepared to meet the rigors of college. Late evenings and weekends, preparing lessons and grading papers, chaperoning field trips, leading service trips, coaching, they do it all, believing in our students and their ability to succeed. The North Shore Women's Circle and the Lake Forest Women's Group both stopped. As parents and caring mothers, they are acutely aware of the many needs faced by families. They laid the foundation of what has become our Family Assistance Fund. Over the years, they've done everything needed to meet the basic needs of our families and allowing our students to focus on their education. Our parent community has always stopped. They make many sacrifices to ensure their children have access to opportunities and a path to college. They gather with us in prayer, at athletic events, honors assemblies, and are willing to pitch in and volunteer whenever needed. If you're here in this room tonight, you have made the decision to stop, to get to know your neighbors, our students, and their families. At some level, you've already asked and answered the question, what will happen to my neighbor if I don't stop? By stopping, you have helped to ensure that all our young men and women will have access to the rigors of a college prep education offered at Christ the King. By stopping, you ensure that all of our students will have access to the transformational opportunities offered in our corporate work study program. By stopping, you ensure that all of our students will have the opportunity to explore a relationship with God and build a strong moral and spiritual foundation that a Catholic education in the Jesuit tradition provides. Although I've been talking a lot about people stopping, our students have just gotten started. We have again set new highs for students being inducted into the National Honor Society. We have a record numbers of students on the honor roll, as principal scholars, and as president scholars. All of our current senior class has already been accepted into college for the 7th straight year. And we're a handful shy of all of our students being accepted into four-year colleges and universities for the third straight year. Every student, every year. We started a tackle football program this year, and our varsity team remains undefeated. Don't ask about the JV schedule. We have over 70 students in our band, including our drum majors and majorettes. We have corporate work study partners up north in Rosemont, Schaumburg, and Bensonville, out west in Oak Brook and Westchester, on the south side in Hyde Park, and throughout the Loop and River North. Our alums have studied in Argentina, the Far East, and in London. Our earliest graduating classes have already begun graduating from college and have begun their careers, including Kiara, whom you heard from earlier this evening, and many of those students have begun working at our current corporate work study partners. If we continue to get to know our neighbors and give of ourselves with a dangerous unselfishness, those 6 miles between Christ the King and the Loop will no longer be viewed with trepidation. Those 6 miles can become a road to opportunity on which all people will be invited to travel. When we come together in kinship, when we get to know our neighbors and walk with them, when we come together in love, it is only then that we can say that we are men and women for and with others. It is only then that we too can say that we have been to the mountaintop. Thank you all for coming this evening. Thank you for all your support in making Christ the King a very, very special place.